Welcome friends in another session of Linux programming, and in this session we're gonna discuss around the disk utilities, and we're also gonna discuss about the networking utilities also. And along with that we also have some text filtering commands. We're also gonna discuss about that as well. Well, so let's get it started. The first one, the disk utility. Now the disk is nothing but a disk or the storage media what is attached to your server or your computer. It can be an internal disk, it as well can be an external disk which is properly connected to your computer. Now in the disk utilities we can have multiple commands. To be specific, 4 commands we're going to discuss here, and those commands will be used to check up the partitions on your system. The partition means a logical boundary where you can call it in Windows as C drive, D drive. In Linux, we call them partitions as well, but the names are a bit different. The commands will check up the partitions on each disk and what is the specific set of size that you have, or what is the amount of space you have actually went forward and used it inside that, or how much space is actually free from that. We also have some commands which will be also helping you to identify what percentage of the disk is used and what percentage of the disk is still free. So let us get it started. We have got 4 commands listed over here. They are called fdisk, sfdisk, parted, and df as well. So let's go forward and start with the very first one, where we do call it fdisk. Now fdisk is a most widely commonly used or the most popular command which will be helpful to check the partitions on a disk. The fdisk command will display what are the partitions do you have inside your system and what is the file system you're actually using. However, it will not be reporting the size of the each partitions. In order to do that, we have got some other commands as well. So let's watch out a demo. How does that actually works? So I have already logged into my system once again, and I'd like to go forward and see that how does it actually works. So the first command which is in the list, we are about to watch out a demo which is called fdisk. So I'll go forward and say fdisk, and I'll hit enter, and I'll see what are the disk or what are the partitions you do actually have right now and how they are actually listed. So instead of calling them C drive, D drive like Windows, in Linux we call them dev, which is called a device, and then inside that HDA, SDC, EDA on the others as well, right? So, and they are also listed as IDE devices or SCSI devices and everything. Also, we do have something called dev, where we can also find it out that it's a random read-write device or not, which is actually faster than the IDE and SCSI disk. So to find out how many disks you do have inside your system, I'll go forward and say L, and I'll say enter, and here we go. Here we have got our SD1 and then SD2 and SD3, a total of 3 partitions over here. And which is a boot device. It says that star beside SDA1. That means that all your booting files are actually located in this particular location. It starts from the sector 1 and it ends with 7186. How many blocks do have that one, and what is the ID of that particular partition is also listed here. It will also help you to go forward and identify that what type of file system it is, and it's listing it's a NTFS file system. Unlike a Windows FAT, it's a NTFS file system. So that's how fdisk works and gives you the details of that. And then we go forward and try to see the second command, which is called fdisk, and it is also pretty much similar like fdisk, but with a little difference. It gives you a little more features. It can actually go forward and display what is the size of each partitions, right? So let's go forward and see how do you actually identify that. We're gonna go forward and figure out the command called sfdisk, which stands for size, And then I go forward and say, yes, I want a long listing of that. I wanted to find out in terms of MBs. And the moment I hit enter, you can actually go forward and see that. So what is the size of that available right now, along with the other details as well, right? So this option we didn't had in the other commands, it's called fdisk, but here we can actually go forward and add that option. Moving further, there is one more command available, which will be actually used for advanced purpose, but just we are introducing this command. It's not really recommended to use that now. The command is called parted command. The part is a command which will be used to modify the partitions what you have in your system, which is not right now recommended if you are not an advanced user. But the command goes as parted-l, and then it gives you a chance to go forward and play around the partition sizes. You can actually change your boot device location, or you can change in the size as well. Reminder, it's not right now recommended to go forward and execute this command if you are not sure what you are actually doing here. It can land up in a situation where you will crash your Linux environment. Right. Moving further, the second command is called df command. Df is not a partitioning utility, but it prints out the details of the hard disk which are connected to your system. It even also includes the real-time partitioning on the internal as well as on the external devices. The syntax for that goes as df-h, which will be actually listing out the details pretty much very well. Now, let's see how does that actually works. We'll go forward and say df space -h as an option, and it's a pretty much understandable format of what as a normal Linux user understands. And it actually goes as, it says that in the first set of users, it has got a 15 gigabytes of memory. Out of that, 2.6 gigabyte is actually used over here. Available is 11 gigabytes, and how much is used is actually 19%. How do you access that? By a option called slash, right? So slash root at slash boot, something like that. So it's your home directory or the total size of the disk. Now there are another drive available, another partition available, where you have got a total of 92 MB of memory available. Out of that, 12 MB is actually used. 75 MB is available, which means 14% of that is only used. And how do you access that? Slash boot. So that is the command. How do you actually get an understandable version of your disk partitions and details? Now that's pretty much all about the disk utilities. Moving further, we'll have some networking commands as well over here, the networking utilities. But before that, let's take a quick look. What is a network and how does a network works and how do you represent that? So a network can actually be considered as a TCP/IP protocol in Linux. The ISO-SI model is not applicable for Linux. So you can change to other protocols as well, but the default is always TCP/IP. Now, Linux, it's not that in your environment, if you have a Linux computer, you cannot connect to other computers. No, that's not true. You can actually get connected to Windows or Mac operating systems or the novel operating systems or something like that. So that's basically a network looks like in a normal environment. You have got multiple servers, and this is your internet provider, which helps you to get connected with the external world or the internet. And then from a router, you actually get into a switch. That particular switch can be also divided the load into multiple other switch. And from a direct switch, you will be getting your computers or the devices connected, right? You can also use a router over here to get the traffic routed around multiple devices. And that also can be connected to a wireless hotspot so that you can wirelessly connect to your network. Right. Now, there are a few commands available over here, a total of 5, which we're going to discuss over here. The first one is called hostname, which helps you to find out the name of the host of your computer, what right now you're using. That comes with multiple other options as well. Like if you wanted to find out the domain to which you are connected, it gives you option D. If you wanted to find out the hostname along with the domain, it gives you option F. And if you wanted to find out what is the IP address of a computer, if you know the host name, you can go forward and use an option called -i. So let's watch out a very quick demo and see how does that actually works. So now in my environment, I go forward and say host name, and that gives me a host name Niladri-office. That's the name of my host, the present computer. Without executing hostname command, also you can go forward and find out what is the name of your computer. And then now if you wanted to find out to which domain you actually belongs to, you can go forward and find out hostname -d. It gives you a generic options over here. And then if you actually go forward and say Niladri-office, and if you wanted to find out to which domain actually it works, you can also go forward and find it out. Now, if I go forward and say hostname -i, I will be able to find out what is the IP address of my system, right? So it actually print out pretty much the detail. Right now, I'm connected to a device with a static IP address where it's my server. So it's called 127.0.0.1, to be specific, the host name. The another command what we also have, where I'll be calling it a ping command, which is used to test the connectivity between two computers. So now if I wanted to find out, is my system connected to a computer in the domain called 172.16.2.1, I'll go forward and execute the command. Now if I don't know the IP address, I can also do it with the host name. Say, for example, www.yahoo.com. And it will be showing me the connection status. So let's see how do you actually do that. I'll go forward and say ping, and I would like to test my connection with the arbitrary system, which does not really exist. So I'll say 127.1.1.1. 170.1.1.1 does not belong, so it will be showing me what is actually happening to that. The ping command will be, the speed of that depends on your network, how quickly it can actually reach. And as I'm not getting any response over here, it means that it's not really connected. And if I would like to ping with a known system, which says 172.0.0.1, which is my local system, that as well does not give any command over here. So let me switch now to IP address which I know exists. So I'll ping to 127.0.0.1, and you can see that is actually getting the responses from that. It will be always also listing that what is the time it takes to get connected, or what is the congestion time, the traffic durations and everything. To come out of that running loop, I'll once again go forward and press Ctrl-Z, so I come out of that option. Now if I wanted to ping something which does not belong to my domain, I can actually go forward and say www.google.com, and I'll hit enter, and I also see that yes, it's also connected, but you can notice that the time to get connection response, it's pretty much higher. It depends on your network connectivity or your internet service provider speed. Right, so that is pretty much all about the ping command. Apart from the ping command, we have another command called ifconfig, which will be checking out your network configuration in specific. It can also check out the configuration of your hardware as well. So let us see how do you use this ifconfig command. Go forward and say ifconfig, and it will be listing it out like how many devices, networking devices you are actually connected with. So right now only one device I do have. It's my Ethernet 0, which is nothing but my LAN card NIC. And I can also see that what is the IP address it has got, what is the subdomain, what is the broadcasting address to this particular domain, what is the MAC ID of that, and everything. Now, if I don't want the details of multiple connected devices to me, I can actually say ifconfig, and I can say echo 0, which will be actually printing the details of that particular device, right? So that's how it actually works around. Now, moving further, we do have also another command which will be helping us to find out the IP address of an unknown hardware, unknown computer. Say in my domain, I do have a computer called B4801122, and I would like to find out what is the IP address of that, because most of the time if I wanted to perform a very certain operation on a hardware, I have to actually go forward and do it with the IP address, because as you all know, inside a network I cannot have multiple IP addresses, but I can have multiple host names as well. So if I wanted to figure out like what is the IP address of a specific computer, I can actually go forward and do that. So what I'm gonna do is I have already a computer which is connected to my network, and I know Niladri-Office is the name of the device. So what I'm gonna do is I'll go forward and say nslookup, and I'll say the name of the host computer, and I'll hit enter. Now it will be taking, it takes a little while to get it retrieved. And yes, it's correct. It gives me the name of the IP address. The IP address, it's 192.168.1.1 in the network. So it's like very, very powerful. I can also use it for some other purposes as well. Say I wanted to find out what is the Google server right now I'm connected with. I'll say www.google.com. And the moment I hit enter, I'll be getting the understanding that yes, it's a 216.58.196 and 100 is the IP address of the Google server, which right now I'm connected with, right? So it is pretty much useful whenever you would like to find out the IP address of a website, but you actually don't have any idea about. Right. Moving further, we have got another command, the last left out command in the category, which is called netstat. It gives you the statistics of your network, say how many computers are right now connected, how many computers are actually transmitting how much of data, what is your network traffic based on that, and everything in short. So let's go forward and see how does netstat command helps you. So I'll say netstat, and I'll say enter. So it will be actually listing it out, whatever the commands or whatever the options you do have, how many options they are into the receiving end, how many of them are in the sending end. Now I don't have anything else, so it's like it's possibly will not be giving a very long list, but yes, it shows me how many processes or how many computers or how many users are actually right now connected to me. I can also go forward and figure out little more details of that, saying I wanted to list all the processes, not only in my local server, also by the other server which is right now connected to my server. And it actually goes forward and says netstat-a. So it tells you like what is the protocol you are using, what is actually the receiving side, what is the sending side, what is the address of that, what is the process, and in which mode right now they are into, they're listening or they're stopped listening or they're connected or they're not connected, everything in short, right? So that's a pretty much interesting command called netstat, which gives us very much in detail information. Once again, these commands are majorly used for your administrative purposes. In our normal day-to-day life, we might not find out a situation where you can go forward and use it. Right. Now, another category of Linux commands is called the filters, which is always used to filter out your textual data. So let's see what is a filter basically. Now, when a program performs an operation on an input and writes the result on a standard output, you have an option to choose what to see and what not to see. And those options are basically known as filters. So for instance, I have got an input file, and from that file, now I'm choosing what type of content I wanted to see. As you all know, if I go forward and have a cat command on a file, it will actually go forward and list out everything. But I can also go forward and choose what to see or how much to see from that particular file. So let us see what more we do have in that connections. One after another, we'll review a total of 6 commands, filter commands over here. One more thing before to start, it's very important to understand these are not the commands. So you cannot directly go forward and execute that. You have to go forward and use that with the help of another command, just to filter out the output of any command. Now, starting with the very first one, we have got 6 listed over here. We'll see all of them one after another. The first command, which is called grep command, it's a multi-purpose file searching tool that uses a regular expression. Now, we have got a detailed discussion on a regular expression in this video. You can actually pause the video and read out the complete thing. However, I'm not getting into the details of that. Now, let us see how does a grep command actually works around. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll say ls, so it will be listing out my files and folders, whatever I do have. If I move around and say ls, it will be actually giving me a detailed list. One second. Now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go forward and say ls-l, so that I can get a detailed listing of that, and I can see that there are multiple files which is present over here. Now what I want is, I don't want it to look around all the files. I wanted to only see the log files which are available in my system. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna say ls-l, and then I'm gonna forward a pipe symbol, which will be helping me to filter out the command based on the filter options I mentioned after the pipe symbol. And then I go forward and say grep, and inside a double quote or without a double quote, I'll go forward and mention star.log. The moment I hit enter, it is not matching with any of the parameters because there is no file called start.log. So I have to actually get it converted into a expression, putting a double side on that, and as well that does not give you much of the options over here. Now what I can also do over here, I can go forward and say I can modify this option over here, and I can say whatever I do have which starts with a. Now I can see that there is some files which are starting with a or has got a in somewhere in the name, right? So that's pretty much an option where I can go forward and find it out. Now if I wanted to go forward and find out something called log, I can also go forward and find out there are some files where those are only the log files. So it actually helps you to go forward and find out, filter your outputs based on the parameters what you mention actually. Right. Now, as I was mentioning, to understand regular expression, that needs a very separate session, and this is the detail about a regular expression. What you can actually do, you can go forward and pause this video and try out all the options whatever I have mentioned over here. Well, now another command what we do have over here, which is called sort filter, and it's a sorting utility often used as a filter in a option in a command, where this commands actually sorts a text stream or a file or according to various keys or the options what you go forward and mention. Now to have a demonstration of that file, we have to create a file over here. So let us go forward and create up a file inside our folder 1. So I'll first of all go inside folder and create up a file saying file2.txt, and inside that file I'll have some random numbers given, and that will be pretty much all, and I'll say Control Z. Once the file is ready, if I go forward and say cat file2.txt, it will be listing the data in the order I have went forward and inserted. Now what you can also go forward and do that, you can sort this content saying that cat file2, and you can mention sort. The moment you can go forward and mention sort, you find out that you figure out that the data is now sorted in ascending order. There are multiple other options as well to get it done in a descending order, which is also mentioned in your handbook. You can as well refer to that. Okay. You have got another command over here, which is called tsort. The command tsort actually do out a topological sorting where it actually ignores the white spaces and everything, but it by default it do according to the ascending order. So I'm not going to repeat that because our output as of now will not be finding it out much differences. Right. Now, if I would like to have a file where I do have multiple duplicate lines available, and I would only wanted to see the files which, the lines which has got a unique line. So what I'm gonna do about that? Let us go forward and see a demo of unique, how to delete the file from a sorted order or something. So what I'm gonna do is, once again, I'm gonna create up a new file where I'll be having multiple lines which are duplicate in nature. So I'm creating a file called file3.txt, and there I'll have few couple of lines which are duplicate in nature, and that will be pretty much all. I'll save the file and come out of that by pressing Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, and now if I go forward and try listing that file, I'll be seeing the pretty much same content, whatever you do have, everything over here. But now I would like to see the file contents where the file is actually been only unique contents. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll be writing the file name cat file3 followed by a pipe sign as always, and then I'll go forward and mention unique. Now you can see that you don't have the repeated data here, right? You have only the unique values which are to be printed. Okay, fine. Moving further, there are some other options as well available where you can actually, instead of seeing the complete file, you can actually go forward and see the first couple of lines or the last couple of lines. To see the beginning, some of the beginning lines of the file, you can go forward and say a option called head, where the number of default lines gonna be 10. If you wanted to see only the first one or two, you can change that by mentioning option -c. So let's go forward and see how does it make a difference here. So let me see now this particular file called file3.txt, where I have got pretty much so many lines, but I'm right now interested only to see the first 3 lines of it. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll write cat file3.txt as usual, then followed by, I'll mention the pipe sign, I'll mention the option head, and then I'll say -c3. So now I have actually got 3 lines to be specific over here. The last line is ignored because it's a redundant file. Now if I would like to go forward and see 5 lines of that, I can actually go forward and see 5 lines of it, right? So it works pretty much as we wanted it to be, right? As I mentioned, if I don't mention any option, by default I'll be getting 10 set of files. Now the opposite to that is called tail, where it will be listing the contents from the last, right? So if I say the last 3 lines, so it will be, I have to go forward and mention tail -n, and I have to go forward and mention the number of lines what you want. So to have a demo of that, I'll again go forward and say cat file3.txt to have a complete listing of the file. So now I have got a complete listing of the file available here. And now I'd like to go forward and figure out that if I can see the last 3 lines of that. So what I'm gonna mention, the same way, cat file3.txt as usual, the pipe symbol as usual, and to get the listing from the last, I'll mention tail, and a difference from head, instead of C, now it's N, and I'm gonna mention 3. So now you can see that you have exactly got the last 3 lines of it. So that's how does it actually works out over here on the file system filters, right? This filters also can be used on any other commands like ls or something, which will be giving you the same sort of expected outputs. Moving further, now we do have something called a backup utility, where a backup is nothing but taking a separate copy of that. Now, how does it different from a copy? The copy is a one-time copy. So say, for example, you have a file called file1, and you have made a change in that. Inside your copy, the changes will not be applying if you have taken the copy before making the changes. But however, option backup is something where that maintains 2 parallel versions of the file. Now, if at all the first file got corrupted, the second file actually still work out for you. Now, to specifically, a backup is a copy of 1 or more files created as an alternate in case the original data is lost or became corrupted or unusable. A backup is also a process of taking a regular copy without human intervention and archiving it to or putting it to a separate location where if at all required, you can actually restore it out. Now this backup requires a huge disk space, which right now I don't have left out in my server. So I'll be just demonstrating the command to you. Now, if I do have two folder locations over here, what I'm gonna do is I'll be writing rsync, which is a regular sync option, and I'll go forward and mention zvr to have a regular location, and then I have to go forward and mention the source location and the destination location, so that the backup will keep on being taken on a regular interval, and it will not be having any disturbances whenever you wanted to have a data loss or data corruption problem. So this is pretty much all about the backup utility. And then in the coming session, we're going to discuss two text processing very powerful utility, AWK and SCD, where it will be a pretty much interesting because whatever you wanted to do on a database with a SQL command or something, on a database table or something, you'll be able to do the same sort of a thing over here with the help of a AWK and SCD command.